One faithful wins protection from murder, but not banishment.
That got me close to writing Philly's name on the board last night. Yeah, because it was just...
The Philly and Robbie discourse from the previous roundtable was still in the thoughts of some of the faithfuls at breakfast. While Robbie had been a suspect since day one, Philly was recently starting to appear on the radar for others who might not have suspected things were going to play out the way the day actually did. Before everyone found out who was murdered, Robbie wanted to address those who were there. She felt beaten up by what's happened in the game so far. All the accusations have been weighing her down to the point that despite having the shield, she didn't sleep very well. Brody was the one murdered, and it was probably the best move. I believe she would have figured out at least one more traitor if she was still in the game. Her reaction to the letter made me believe she might have initially thought it was a seduction letter. The choice to seduce wasn't much of a consideration after Matt's banishment, but it would have made for an interesting prospect to actually try and get Brody on board as a traitor. Many faithfuls had deemed Brody as one of their trusted go-to people, which further proves the decision to eliminate her was the best one. I thought it was quite an interesting moment when Colin told Brooke that when he tells compliments to the others about them playing well in banishing a traitor, or that it was down to them, he's actually putting targets on people's back. I don't know if that was an intentional strategy by Brooke as a traitor, or that he was generally paying them compliments for doing so well. Dylan seems to be veering towards Vanda because of her voting pattern and her job. I always laugh when someone mentions people's job as a reason why they could be a traitor. Writing is one thing, but gameplay and manipulation is another. I thought everyone came to a consensus that Vanda was faithful during episode 3's roundtable, but it seems like that hasn't truly died out. Dan's name was mentioned in a car to the mission by Vanda, the same car that happened to have Brooke as a passenger. Brooke got to work again with a little steering by mentioning other names alongside Dan. Will this actually work this time? Who knows? During the mission, there seemed to be an agreement to put the barrels of wine just before the line and then decide who should cross it. Given that those carrying the first 3 barrels to cross get access to the armory, Anna and Philly were first to get close to the end. They asked Brooke and Dan, who were just behind, if they could cross. Brooke told them to do it, so Anna and Philly crossed with their barrel, and so did Brooke and Dan with theirs. Philly went back to help and ended up crossing the line again, but with Colin, which meant only 5 players won access to the armory instead of a possible 6. With that, plus the agreement to not cross the line yet, it didn't go down well with some of the others. Kings could have easily gone with a barrel quickly, but chose to stay back and help others based on that agreement. Sam was clearly upset, but what also came from this is that Sam now is suspicious of Brooke. This mission could have unknowingly caused a bit of a divide between those that won access to the armory and those that didn't. At the round table, a lot of discussion was centered around the mission. Firstly, over the agreement not being followed through. The second main talking point from the mission ended up being more of a factor in the votes. Philly crossing the line twice with the first 3 barrels, especially given what Colin raised.
Do you remember what you said to me when we went over the line and we went back?
No.
You said you'd gone over twice. Can I go to the armory twice?
During the roundtable discussion, Brooke ended up talking too much. So much that at one time he was trying to answer for Philly despite the question being directed at Philly. This had the potential to make the faithfuls think Brooke's either a traitor trying to take over the conversation and steer it, or that he just takes a lot of the air out of the room and might end up being a distraction. Brooke's vote for Sam didn't make sense, but not because he chose Sam, it was the reason he told everyone. That he knows Sam is a faithful, but he didn't want to be part of the pylon and vote for Philly. Not the kind of move to play if you're pretending to be a faithful. This move definitely raised eyebrows by Anna in her VT. It'll be interesting to see if Anna and Sam have a conversation about their suspicions of Brooke. Outside of Brooke, Dan also didn't vote for Philly and instead voted for Vanda. I thought Dan might have voted for Colin, seeing as Dan's initial plan earlier was to paint Colin as a puppet master of the game. Maybe that's something for a later time. As everyone else voted for Philly, this was a basic case of the faithfuls all voting for their own, while the traitors sat back watching. In the end, Philly finding the shield was worthless, as he was banished. A bit of relief for the traitors who probably didn't see that vote coming at the beginning of the day. Brooke and Dan talked through their options. Eliminate either Dylan or Justine, or seduce. Brooke had the perfect person in mind for seduction, someone they can use for banishment, which could then confuse the faithfuls about how many traitors there actually is. The seduction target is Robbie, which is actually a good idea, an early suspect that hasn't really gone away, but will she accept the offer? Click for more content about the traitors.